Now joining the One Star Recruits podcast, we have a husband, a father, an entrepreneur, the 1998 Heisman Trophy winner, an NFL veteran, and one of the most well-rounded guys you'll ever hear about, Ricky Williams. How you doing today, Ricky?
Doing pretty good. Thank you.
Good. And I know you're launching your own podcast here, so we definitely want to hit on that. But I'm excited to have you on because we're all in the LA area, but your hometown is San Diego, born and raised. And, you know, I tell anyone I get the chance to tell about how San Diego is the best city on earth. But I haven't been as many places as you have. You've been all around the world, but you found your way back here to California. Where does San Diego rank in your book in terms of being one of the best cities in the world?
It's definitely number one.
Oh, really?
I was very fortunate. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to grow up in a cool town. And I think it's so special, one, because we got mountains. This is Southern California. We got the mountains and we got the beach, and we have, moderate weather pretty much the year round, although it can get really hot inland in Southern California.
Yeah, true.
But also, I think the special thing about San Diego is that it's a military town. And so you get a special kind of diversity there in Southern California that I don't think you get anywhere else. And so I was very fortunate to grow up around so many different types of people from different walks of life. And I think it really set a strong foundation for me.
It's such a cool city. And, DK and I both grew up in Phoenix, and we always loved going out to San Diego for the weekend. And I know you guys would get inundated with Arizonans. What are the true feelings of how San Diegans felt about the influx?
They hate Zonies.
The truth is, I think, there's some people that have issues with it, but the truth is, so many people that live in, especially now, so many people that live in San Diego are not from San Diego. And
yeah.
So I think we've had to, and I think, again, being a military town is something that, we've had a lot of practice at. But it's rare, like most cool cities these days. It's rare to find natives, people that were born and raised, and so I'm super proud to be from San Diego.
Yeah, it's one of the cool things. A beautiful thing is people coming from all places. If you can tolerate the crowds, it's kind of cool. I mentioned the podcast, which is launching the first week of February here, and we started ours last year during quarantine, and it's been a crazy ride so far. You're such a versatile guy with your hand in so many things. What is your podcast going to be called, and what will you focus on?
Yeah, so my podcast, I'm excited about it. It's an opportunity to blend a lot of my different experiences and interests into one thing that I can take pride in participating in. And the name of the podcast is Curious Questions with Ricky Williams.
Love it.
And it comes from, as an athlete, I had a really tough time dealing with the media because I felt like, and I understand it now more than I did then, but I felt like so many of their questions were coming from a stereotypical view of what an athlete should be and how athletes should speak. And so I didn't like that feeling of being put into a box when I felt I had so many more interesting things to share. And so on my podcast, I'm, bringing on people that I know, people that I don't know, people that have interesting stories, and really asking deeper, more intimate questions about to get a sense of who is this person as a unique individual, and how can we understand their life's journey. And the special ingredient in the podcast is for about 16 years now, I've been studying astrology. And so I have a pretty good grasp on how to use it to understand people. And so the first segment of the podcast, I talk about my guest, and I talk about their chart a little bit, what I looked at and what piqued my interest. And then I kind of introduce the audience to the kinds of questions or what I'm going to be trying to figure out with my questions. And then I bring on the guest. Wow. And it's a conversation of, me asking questions and hopefully pulling out stories and interesting highlights. And then at the end, guest leaves, and the last segment is me wrapping everything up and talking about what I learned from my curious questions.
Ricky, that's sick. I mean, that's incredibly unique. I'm ready to give you my birthday and hop on it and you tell me what's going on in this crazy head of mine. But that's really unique, man. And Curious Questions with Ricky Williams is actually a great name. I think we talk about this podcast a lot about curiosity probably being one of the more important attributes in growth and learning and stepping outside of that box like you talked about. We're pumped. We're going to put in the show notes and we'll make sure to hype that, get people there. It sounds really interesting. Let me ask you about, we're in quarantine now. A lot of people are starting to work on new businesses, new ideas, kind of new concepts. We talk about relationships too on this pod. So you started a wellness company. I believe you started with your wife. Talk to our listeners a little bit, right, about kind of starting a new business, and in addition, starting it with a partner. How's that road been? And what advice would you give people looking to do that?
Yeah, I've actually started a couple of companies. The first one, it's called Real Wellness, and it's a herbal wellness company that I started with my wife. She's actually the CEO, and it's a cool story. She was at a crossroads in her life. She was a corporate attorney, and she was kind of stuck. And we met, and she started seeing all the things I was into, and she started to think about how can she take her expertise and her training and everything she's learned from 15 years as a corporate attorney and do something that's more interesting to her. And so I've been studying herbalism for about 15 years. And so, and a lot of people know about my history with cannabis. And one of the things I've found in my life is that you can combine cannabis with other herbs and turn it into real, even more potent medicine. And so we started an herbal company that combines cannabinoids, THC, CBD, and other cannabinoids with other herbs. And so like to help people with simple things that annoy us, but it seems like all the doctor can do is give us pills. So things like, like headache, mild anxiety, insomnia, just giving people a natural alternative. Because I found in my days as a football player, when I went the doctor's route, it created more side effects. When I could go when it was possible to go the more traditional route, I recovered faster with less side effects. And so again, it's part of sharing my experiences and what I've learned with other people, with my community.
All right, cool, Ricky. Real Wellness, once again, we'll put that in the show notes. I think for our listeners too, I just recently was able to get my parents and some people in older generations who have been very anti-cannabis into looking at things for their wrist pains and their knee pains and their back pains. And I think Real Wellness would be a great spot for people to check out just to get that party started. So we'll put it in the show notes, Ricky.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, our pleasure, man. Let's kind of, we have a lot of people into sports who are younger athletes. A lot of coaches listen to our podcast. Let's slide on your coaching, maybe your parenting hat for a second here and talk about cannabis, which you brought up. Giving real world advice, both to a youngster and maybe a coach. What would you say now? We know the NBA kind of has backed off of testing, and we see things coming around. But anything of too much can get out of whack. What advice do you have to those folks?
Yeah, it's interesting, and hopefully, I have some advice, but the truth is, and I'm about to turn 44. What I'm realizing is these younger kids, they know things that I don't, and they're aware of things that I don't, and they're growing up in a world where they don't have to sit through DARE assemblies and
yeah.
If you smoke cannabis, your brain will turn into eggs, and so they're having a different approach, and so it's tough. I think it's really tough, and I think what you said is a key point, is to realize that anything that makes you feel good can serve as an escape and keep you from being present and living your life. And cannabis is probably high on the list, especially right now, as it's not so taboo. And so I think for message I give to kids is your own body, your own mind, and there's going to be things that you can get away with that your parents aren't going to find out about. And if I think it's a waste to be rebellious for rebellion's sake, because as a kid, there's certain things you have to learn that your parents taught you. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
And so it's that fine line of, I think they call it experimentation. And my message to kids is experiment, but at the same time, be aware. The point of experimenting is when you go too far. And I think it's healthy to know when you've gone too far. But at the same time, if you try to follow the rules and you don't listen to your heart, you're not gonna live a fulfilling life. And so I'd say that similar message to parents. And I think as a parent, I have to constantly remind myself that I was a kid once. and my go-to with parenting is situations with my kids, I imagine how would I have wanted my parents to handle this situation, and I make an attempt to, to meet that standard. But these are tough questions, and I think the best advice I can give to in parenting is allow yourself to be creative as a parent. And what I mean is creativity is life throws us a bunch of different things, and if we can be creative in solving these problems, we'll come up with better solutions. But the opposite of being creative is just handling it the way that our that our parents handled it.
Exactly. And Rip, you're a parent, you have 2 kids. I think it's something that's going to come up in discussion a little bit more of that balance. We're at the age now where we're kind of, Ricky, I'm turning 42 as well. And it's kind of, I look back now and I see people who are more eclectic and growing up versus people who didn't have as many opportunities, both socially and the power of traveling, right? What that even does. Smoking hash in a foreign country with friends under a crazy spot is different than maybe smoking an old joint in the back of somebody's car. So I think it's about curiosity, man. That's why your podcast is spot on. Curiosity with caution. You got the internet, you got cats like you who we can get a lot of info from. So try to be strategic and stay away from the pain pills. There's other options possibly.
There's definitely other options, and I think that's Western medicine. Allopathic medicine is wonderful. When I tore my pec and broke my arm, they did a wonderful job putting me back together. But the truth is, the drugs they gave me to deal with what they did made me feel worse. And so I think that, especially if you're a football player or any kind of athlete, one of the major things that no one tells you about, at least I don't think they stress it enough, is how important it is to learn to take care of your body. And to me, take care of your body doesn't mean, like I used to do in high school, pop a couple of leaf before I pitch so my arm wouldn't hurt. It's really paying attention to your body, and if something is hurting, address it, deal with it. Don't mask it, because the same body you have at 18 is going to grow and change in age, but it's still the same body. And so you got to start taking care of it now.
It's crazy because we had both Jake Plummer and Jim McMahon on this podcast within the last few months, and you guys all come from such different backgrounds, but the stuff you're saying about the injuries and the pain pills and using other options is almost exactly the same, which is, I hope people start listening to that more,
Yeah, because if you're an athlete and, you can recognize probably as early as 12, the kids that have it, and a small percentage of those kids actually make it. And so much of being an athlete is taking care of your body, because you already have the ability. I think the two most important things, I think, for athletes is, one, taking care of your body, and I mean, two, taking care of your mind, and be a constant learner. To become better at anything, to improve at anything, it requires learning new skills.
Let's learn something today, Ricky. Tell our listeners one thing that we can implement into our lives that have to do with traditional Oriental medicine. I mean, we're bringing something new to the table. What's something? Is it ginseng? Is it something that we can start implementing now to maybe help our immunity?
Ginseng, there's for immunity. Ginseng is great just as a natural energizer, and anytime your body has more energy, your immunity is going to be improved. I'll start with a story, because so much of what traditional Chinese medicine can teach us, the herbs and the acupuncture is great, but it's really about a perspective and having a different perspective on the body. And so in Chinese medicine, and I think with COVID going around, I think it's a good topic, immunity. So for the Chinese, immunity is specifically based on your body's ability to protect itself. And if you go in Western medicine, they'll say the same thing. But the imagery they use in Chinese medicine, they call it Wei Qi. Qi meaning energy, Wei means protective. So literally they envision it as like soldiers or an army that guards your body, guards the perimeter of your body to not allow any invaders to come in, right? Yeah. And the invaders would be pathogens, right? Or the virus, exactly. And so from a Chinese medical perspective, immune system is a holistic wellness mechanism, because if you have, even if it's like you have constipation, for instance, right? That
totally
backup in the system over time starts to drain your resources and eventually will affect your defense system, right? If the soldiers are going to have to like put a hole in the dam so the water can go through, they're not out protecting the outside of the body, and so we become more susceptible. And so for immunity, the simple things that Chinese medicine says is back to the same thing: take care of yourself, and that means, you know, eat when you're hungry and stop eating when you're not hungry. Sleep when you're tired and don't sleep when you're not tired. You know, these simple things. Hang around people that feel good to be around, right? Don't hang around people that stress you out, right? These simple lifestyle choices, without having to take any herbs, any acupuncture, any pills, anything, are the best things that we can do for our immune system. And for herbs, ginseng is great, but there's also another herb called huang qi, or the Latin name is astragalus. 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 It's a great herb for building general energy, but specifically for building immunity. Yeah. No, real wellness, you know, little plug here. If you go on our site, Real Wellness Herbal. We call it the immunity, and astragalus is the main ingredient, and it'll help keep your immune system strong.
I'm hitting up Real Wellness for sure. Thank you, Ricky. I mean, that's really interesting. It's the little things right now. We do recommendations of the week on this podcast. I think a couple weeks ago, I even said, just drink a glass of lemon water. I was having trouble sleeping and I was having stomach problems because I was eating too much shit around my house, you know? Even little things, even like sitting in sun, not for a long time, but for 5 to 10 minutes, gets my appetite going again sometimes, you know? So I appreciate that, man. That's real interesting.
Yeah, it's funny when you break it down, and it's like it doesn't sound that complicated, you know, but all these extra medicines and drugs have made it more complicated unnecessarily. But you know, I want to hit on some other stuff, because we end every interview with a quick hitter segment where I ask you just a handful of questions based around a specific theme, and you just give me what comes to mind first. And for this one, the only theme I have is really how well-rounded you are. So I just want to get a few quick ones in here covering kind of an assortment of topics with you. Does that work?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I know you're a vegetarian, and I think you have been for a while. And my wife and I started this on mostly a full-time basis last year. And my only complaint so far is that I'm kind of always feeling hungry. So for someone who's been through it in a while, do you have any go-to snacks or even meals that keep you getting enough food? Because missing the meat for me has kind of been a struggle.
Yeah, so the trick for me, and I was lucky, I became a vegetarian while I was traveling around India. And so the thing about cuisines like Indian food and some other Asian foods that have a strong vegetarian history is they flavor the food so you don't feel like you're missing the meat, because you get the flavor through the spices. Yeah. And so my suggestion is, you know, once or twice a week, if you like it, you know, Thai food, Indian food, just look, you know, especially with Uber Eats, find things on the menus that look good and try those and see if that helps.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, we love Indian food. We always have that. But yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah. All right, and switching to football real quick. You're a co-founder. Another one of your entrepreneurial aspects here. You're a co-founder of the Freedom Football League, which is launching next year in a bunch of different cities. We've seen a handful of leagues try to be formidable, but not end up making it. What's going to be different about the FFL, in your opinion?
Oh, that's a great question. So this project started several years ago, about the same time the AFL started, or the AAL. And our whole thing is different. The starting point. So I was invited into this meeting, and they said, you know, we're looking to start another league, and I kind of rolled my eyes, and I was like, it's not going to work. And they said, okay, but if it was going to work, what are some suggestions you would have? And for me, I said, if I did it, it would have to really be about the players. It'd have to be all about the players. An example would be, you know, I said like 90% of the coaches need to be former college or NFL players. Because as an NFL player, the coaches that didn't coach, they look at us like chess pieces or video game pieces. You know, they don't realize that we're humans and what we're going through. Typically, the coaches that have played before have been there, and so they can relate to us better. But also, you know, putting player health, player wellness, player education, life skills, to put all those things up front. And they were interested. And so they called me up the next week and they said, you know, will you come on the board, because we want to implement all of your ideas. And it was hard for me to say no to that. And so what's different is it's really about the players, and it's also about the fans. So a big differentiating factor is we looked at the current financial situation of the NFL, and fans pay good money to see good football, and that's wonderful. But at the end of the day, it's just making the 30 owners and their groups more wealthy. And so
Yep.
we thought about, giving season ticket holders a piece of the team, right? And making it more about community. If you think of where sports teams or sports clubs came from, they came from neighborhoods. And if you go over to Australia or Europe, you'll still see soccer clubs are like community clubs, and people in the community play against other communities. Yeah. And so another rule that we installed is for the draft, is we're only going to have players that went to college, high school, or from that region play on those teams to really build community. And so in a way, we're learning from the current leagues out there now, but we're also going back to the history and seeing what pieces might be left out that could be reintroduced, and also looking to the future of where's professional sports headed. And because we're a new league, we can implement things that are going to be harder for the older, more established leagues to bring in.
Love it.
I love it. And you guys have some teams in some cities with a lot of pride, like San Diego and one in Portland. And so that sense of community, I think, is really going to come through. People can check that out. I think it's freedomfootball.co. So,
yep.
All right. Switching a little back here, you're a big proponent of yoga. I know it's done a lot for you to ease stress and improve your life in other areas. What is one quick pose that every person should try to incorporate into their day? Is downward dog the move, or is that overrated?
I wouldn't even say one pose. I would say it's sun salutations. So sun salutations is a sequence of 12 movements and 12 postures that you move through, and it incorporates breath. And the whole sequence pretty much touches every single muscle and joint in the body. And so 6 rounds of sun salutations in the morning is just a great way to start and a great wake up to the body. And if you do it daily, you'll see your health improve. That's really my everyday practice that I don't miss, is I do 6 rounds of sun salutations every morning.
How long does that take?
It takes about 15 minutes.
Oh, that's not.
And it depends. Sometimes depending on how I'm feeling, I'll go through them really fast, so it's more of like a cardio workout. Yeah. And some days, if I'm feeling stiff, I'll go through slower to get deeper. So 15 to 30 minutes. Sometimes if I have time and I'm really feeling I need to sit with myself, I'll even go slower and do it longer. But it's a flexible practice that anyone could do, and you don't even really need a yoga mat. You just need a flat area. And so that's the thing I love about yoga and these body-based exercises, is you can take them wherever you go.
Yeah, versatile. Okay, good way to start the day. You signed out of college with Master P's agency, and I know there was some controversy around that deal, but the part that I'm most interested in that is that you got a No Limit Records chain as part of the deal. And we grew up with that stuff. Do you still rock that thing every once in a while? Because I feel like it'd be a good conversation starter.
I think my mom has it right now. But
okay.
So yeah, we're about the same age. So you guys get it. So I left California and I went to Texas, which is, at that time in the mid 90s, down south hustle, like down south music was really starting to take off, and I was right there, and my teammates, introduced me to it and got me on. So as I left college, I was impressed. The music was great. The music was great, but I was more impressed with Master P as a businessman and what he created pretty much from nothing. And I was inspired by that. And so when I didn't have an agent and I was, being bombarded by all these agents, just felt slimy. I just felt a connection with P's group. And so I went with them. And, the controversy, that was already controversial because, projected top 5 pick is supposed to go the traditional route. And I think what made it even more controversial is when we got into contract negotiations, my agent, he pretty much said, "What do you want to do?" And I told him what I wanted to do, and he suggested that I do something different. But at the end of the day, he said, "You're the client and I'll do what you want." And what I wanted was pay me a big lump sum up front for what I did in college, but everything else I think I should have to earn. And that was different, and I got a lot of slack for it. And it's funny, if I had to go back and do it again, I think the one mistake I made is, I didn't miss any games in college, and so I think I naively assumed that I would stay healthy forever. And when I got hurt, kind of contract backfired on me. But at the end of the day, I still feel really proud about the statement I was trying to make and saying that I was playing football because I love the game. It wasn't about what I could take from the game.
Yeah, I think it.
Idea alert, Rip, for your podcast. Ricky, if anybody makes a really outstanding point or a touchdown making point, or you find a great astrology you read, they should get to wear the no limit chain.
Amen. That's a wonderful idea. I'll have to hit up my mom and see if she can pull it out of the archives.
Well, we love the creativity that you approach that with, and you approach everything else with. And we're looking forward to your podcast, man. And thanks for coming on One Star Recruits. We appreciate everything you do and everything you're doing. Thank you very much, Ricky.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Ricky.
Take care, brother.
Take care, man.
You too.